until we die. We don't want our life to end. Well, we have a special guest today. Her name is Connie Czepiel, and she is incredible. So we're going to bring her on. Welcome to Step Into Your Life with Julianne Williams, where today you're going to hear about a book called Dream On. The alarm clock of your life has not gone off yet. And Connie is going to inspire you just as she's inspired so many others to push and pursue your dreams no matter what chapter of life you're in. So we're going to bring Connie on right now. Connie, I am so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much for bringing me on. It's exciting. Even this is a dream come true. Like, right? I've never been on television before, so here we are.
Yay! Well, I told everyone before I brought you on that you are the person that can tell us how to live our life fully, and that you can inspire us to live and push for our dreams no matter what chapter of life we're in. So I don't know if you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, but you have had a history that I think is beyond interesting.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm 74 years old, and really my dreams started back even when I was a teenager. And one of the things that, to me, this is a God-given thing, is that, I would lay in bed at night crying because people around the world were dying for want of something so simple as back then as a shot of penicillin. People in what we call the developing world, or the third world back then. And I was just given this compassion for people. And there was a point where I wanted to become a medical missionary. And that didn't all work out, but I just have this real passion for supporting medical missions around the world. And so I, kept that thing in mind, but then, life choices, things change. And, I got married, had 3 children, and it was like, oh, what about these dreams you had? So it's sort of like, put it on the back burner someday, you'll be able to fulfill your dreams. You've got other responsibilities right now. And all of a sudden, an opportunity came, and I went through a real trauma because went through a very unexpected divorce. I hadn't worked in 10 years. I was raising 3 kids, and then it was like, oh my goodness. And somebody asked me one time, "Did you have a real pivotal moment in your life?" And that was one of them where I felt, I was a person of dedication and of enthusiasm and so forth, and all of a sudden my husband ran off, and I had to get out of base housing. We're in the military, and I was trying to find a place to rent, and I talked to this one lady, and she said, "Well, do you have a job?" I said, "No." And she says, "Well, we don't rent a riffraff." And that was so humiliating to me as a person. And but anyway, it was amazing because it just got so turned around, because there's one thing in life, a phrase I heard a long time ago. I believe it was by Dr. Robert Schuller. And he said, problems never leave us the way they found us. They either make us bitter or better. And we better decide in the middle how we want to come out at the other end. So I had a real opportunity to say, okay, is my life over? Am I going to become this bitter person? Or am I going to do my best to live the life that I feel I've been called to do? And so that was a big challenge, but it was amazing how God brought me through. And all of a sudden one day I got a phone call, and they said, we urgently need a finance manager in New Guinea. This was with Mission Aviation Fellowship. And I thought, now? It's like I had 2 kids in junior high school, 1 in high school. And it was like, wow, this doesn't seem possible. But I thought, what? When we have a dream and an opportunity comes to us, we need to be able to say yes. But I didn't right away, because I went to my children and I said, what? If this is right for us, it has to be right for all of us, not just me. And I had one child say, I have no desire to go. Another one says, yeah, I want to go. Another one said, I'd like to go, but not now. And I said, okay, what do we do with this, And so it was just a wonderful opportunity. So I said, look, let's think about it, let's pray about it, let's research it, let's talk to people, let's talk about, find out all we can about the mission, about New Guinea, about where we would go, what we would be doing. what your schooling would be like, all these things. And after a couple of weeks, we had another family meeting, and I was like, "Yep, let's go." And so we
Wow.
all had an agreement, and that was one of our first overseas adventures. And so that it really showed my children how the other half of the world lives. It gave them a real appreciation for what they have. Because people said, "You're crazy taking teenagers or whatever, to another country and all this stuff." I said, "No." I said, "They need to see how the other half of the world lives." And so that was an amazing opportunity. And it was something like out of National Geographic, literally. I mean, we were in remote villages, where women wore grass skirts and men wore gourds, and that was it, type of thing. And it was a very, New Guinea is still probably one of the most primitive places left on the face of the earth. So it was amazing. And anyway, that started a whole journey for me. So then, as my kids got older and my daughter graduated from Pepperdine and became a lawyer and stuff like that. And although she had a medical issue that kept her from doing law. But anyway, not many single parent children, end up at Pepperdine or end up graduating from law school. But we're just really blessed in that sense. And my two sons, who are twins, they joined the military. One is already retired, and I got a grandson that's a CB, so we have a lot of military background.
And, well, thank you to all of them for serving our country, because it's because of them that we get to have the life that we do.
Right. And so people say, how do you keep your dreams alive? And there's a lot of principles I could share if you'd like me to share a couple things.
I would love that. I was actually talking with someone this morning, and they were really discouraged over something that's not turning out the way that they intended it. And I said, here's the thing. You just have to kind of keep remembering that you're like in the corner and you have to keep punching. And that's a strategy that I always use when I get discouraged. But I would not mind learning some others for myself, but to share with him and other people, because discouragement and disappointment happens no matter who you are.
Absolutely. Now we don't get out of life without it, right? And I think that a lot of it is we need to appreciate who we are and value who we have and who we are and what we have to offer. Too often we're trying to be like everybody else, and it just doesn't work. I ran across a thing by Oscar Wilde, who once said, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." And it took me a while, to me, one of the keys is, in addition to our faith, is to believe that you're put on this earth for a purpose, and to identify, this really helped me to identify the 4 values in life that mean the most to you. What are the 4 things? And I usually say to people, aside from your family, because I think we all value our families, but aside from your family, what are the 4 most important things in your life that you value? And for me, because I used to feel like an oddball, it's like, why can't you just be happy with the way other people live, And so I realized that travel, adventure, and service to God and service to country were essential to me. And if those things were not part of what I was doing, I was miserable, And I realized I did a whole lot of project and contract work. I didn't just work somewhere for 20 years, doing the same thing over and over again, working 9 to 5. That just wasn't, to me, that sounded like death. I had to live a whole different life than that. And too often we're afraid to be who we are and who we were made to be. And for example, I know myself, I'm more of a sprinter than a long distance runner, you might say. So I love doing projects, things with an end date. I love doing all these things. I'm willing to take risks, and it takes determination to keep your dreams alive, because not many people will encourage you in your dreams. It's like people want to bring you down to their level. And, I had this phrase also that mere security is a barren ideal. Okay, security is important, right? But what about once you got some security, then what? And people will live very boring lives, or they'll say, well, I don't like my job, but someday I'm gonna do what I really want to do. Well, that's kind of a waste, you know.
Right.
It's like nice, and I heard this a while ago too. You know, someday is not a day of the week. It's you know, someday is here, and
Yeah.
you know we can't keep saying someday, someday, and we have to take action towards our dreams, and that takes some real effort sometimes. And so often people say, well, I don't have time or I don't have the money, you know, to pursue my dreams. And so I talk about that in the book. You know, talk about time management and about money management. So for example, let's just pick a practical example. You could watch Netflix for 6 hours watching a series of shows, right? Or you could say, okay, I'm going to watch for 2 hours, and those other 4 hours, I'm going to think about my dreams and what I can do what action I can take to advance that dream that I have. And, you know, we kind of make time for what's important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, but sometimes we bury what's important to us. And it's like some people don't want to dream because they're afraid they'll be disappointed.
Right.
Well, you know, that's not a way to live either. It's like, look, your dreams are important, and that's part of my message, you know. And we may not be able to do everything we used to do, but we can do something.
Right.
So for myself, I just, as an inspiration, like at 60, I joined the Peace Corps. I didn't even know you could join the Peace Corps at age 60, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went to Botswana for 2 years working on the AIDS pandemic. And subsequent to that, I went to Madagascar. I worked for 7 months on Mercy Ships, which is the world's largest nonprofit surgical ship. And it will go into ports around Africa and give people free surgeries and help them when they have no access to surgical care in certain ways. And then after that, I became a roving finance manager for Samaritan's Purse.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they said, my job, they hired 2 of us, and they said, your job is to be ready to go anywhere in the world at any time to fill in for people. So a lot of times, you know, people go overseas, they get sick or something happens, they have a family crisis, or maybe there's a gap in personnel, maybe somebody quit unexpectedly, maybe somebody had to go home unexpectedly, so then I would go in and fill in. So this is so exciting to me just to share that, for example, I went 3 times to Hanoi, Vietnam. I went twice to Liberia, helping right after they were declared Ebola free the first time. That was right after the whole Ebola thing. That was pretty intense. I went to Greece twice working on the refugee crisis. I was in Jordan twice working at a Bedouin hospital. I was in the South Sudan, and I was in Nepal. And that was all in like 16 months' time. And so it was just an amazing life. And then I got extremely ill in the South Sudan, almost died. And I've had 2 doctors tell me I was lucky to be alive, you know, so that threw me back a bit. And for being such an active person, that was really difficult. And so sometimes, you know, things don't happen like according to plan, right?
Actually, things for me have rarely happened according to plan.
Yes. And so we need to be ready to be able to pivot, right? And to say, because, and even at this age, I think I've said it already, but I may not be able to do everything I used to do, but I can do something, right?
Right.
And we need to take a hold of that, something that really grips our hearts and run with it. So then in, was it 2020 with COVID? Yeah, COVID. So I was going to be the finance director on board the Africa Mercy, which was the ship I was with in Madagascar, and we were going to Senegal. I was going to be gone for 5 months, and I was going to be part of the leadership team, so forth. And when we got there, for one of the few times in their history, they had to cancel the mission due to COVID. And so they said, but you know, we had patients on board, we had people had appointments for surgery, we had people recovering, we had, you know, you don't just shut an operation like that down in a heartbeat, right? And so anyway, they came to us and said, all the airports around the world are shutting down. If you want to go home, sign this paper. The embassy is putting together the last evacuation flight, probably off the Western continent. And it'll be tomorrow, or if you want to stay, okay. So I said, I'll stay. And then an hour later, they called me down to the clinic. They said, sorry, all you older people have to leave. You don't have a choice because you're the at-risk population.
Oh my.
So it was like, I'd it takes a lot to go away for 5 months and especially going overseas, taking care of your home and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks later, I was right back home again. It's like, oh my goodness. And it was in the middle of COVID, middle of shutdown. What in the world am I going to do? And so I had these 2 books in mind, and it was like, okay, it's time to write those books. So spent the next year and a half, writing 2 books, and so those became Amazon bestsellers. And then I've since published a 3rd book, self-published, and I'm still at 74. I took a movie script writing class, and I'm it's a new genre for me. So I put together 2 drafts now of a movie script that is being evaluated as we speak by a script writer, and I have another book I've started. So it's like I plan to live until the day I die.
I love that. What's given you the courage? I mean, to move. I'm a single parent as well. When you say like it's really difficult, you're making these decisions with your children. I did that as well. It takes a lot of courage. What gave you the courage to move your family? What gave you the courage to go and care for others, in the Peace Corps? Because it really does take you out of your comfort zone, I'd imagine. But there must be something that you pull that says, yes, I'm saying yes, and I'm doing it afraid anyway, and I'm going.
Right, and I think that's God-given strength. I mean, for me, there's no other way, because in the natural, you might say it's like it's a crazy thing to do. It's like, what are you thinking, taking your kids overseas and they're teenagers, and what's wrong with you, type of thing. And it's because I value the dream that I was given, and I value who I am and what I believe I have to offer. And, that wasn't put into us for nothing. I believe that. And so and it's hard sometimes. It's hard to keep hope alive, at times, because there were gaps in there too, times where I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And, there's a saying also that I think that was Dr. Schuler again. He said, tough times never last, but tough people do.
Mm-hmm.
When the going gets rough, it's tough, but you keep going. You got to have perseverance. I think, too often people, they'll try something, it didn't work out. Oh, well, I guess that wasn't meant to be. Well, that's not good enough. If you truly want to fulfill your dreams, you're going to have some determination, or it won't. For example, like, you want to become a movie star. Okay, so the first offer was not to be a movie star. People think they can just walk into something like that. Well, there are steps you got to take, the smaller steps. You got to be willing to take the smaller steps in order to reach the bigger goal.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you every day do just one little thing that take you closer to your goal. So, for example, it's like we live life choice by choice by choice. And I think too often we think it's the big ones that matter, but in many ways it's the small daily ones we make every day, that we make every day that matter. And also I think so often when our behavior and our values are not, if they're not congruent, if they're in conflict with one another, I think too often, the values go, because we don't value them. And I know that's redundant to say that, but we don't respect our values enough. And that's very important. And I often tell my kids too, I said, and this is not being judgmental, it's being not everybody deserves to be part of your life, because not everybody is going to encourage you to be who you are.
Right.
They want you to be like they are. And oftentimes they have no ambition, or they have no goals, or they're just living life, which is okay. I mean, that's fine for them. Or they're living a very destructive life, and it's that whole thing of misery loves company, right? So it's like, rather than building each other up, somebody's dragging you down. And you need to value yourself and say, hey, my life has value. What I think is important has value. And I think that's a real huge part of it. Because too often we want to be like everybody else. Well, what is that? We weren't meant to be like everybody else.
And so I like what you said, which is, first of all, to know your values, and then to take those small steps rather than concentrating on the big goal, because the small steps will get you there. And then I really, really enjoy the thought about being who you are. I find as I'm getting a little older that I am feeling a lot more content in knowing who I am
Yeah,
and living that out rather than really just meeting everybody else's expectations for what my happiness is.
exactly. And even the Bible talks about that, we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it how can I put it? We are not like each other. We all reflect an aspect of the Lord, and it's like you reflect something different than I do, but it's so multifaceted. There's no end to it. And
Right.
so it's and you have to have some strategies as well. You have to have some plans. You have to have some, taking steps. And one of the things that, let's say you have an interest in aviation or whatever. Well, okay, don't ignore that. Take your kids to an air show. Go yourself. Surround yourself with people that have some of the same interests. Learn from them. I think mentorship is a very important thing in many aspects. And like at this age, also, we need to remind ourselves to be mentors towards the younger generation.
Right.
And if I could take just a minute, like I really want to encourage people that had their dreams shattered during COVID. Some people, like, they built a whole business for a lifetime. They're 40, 50, 60 years old, and all of a sudden their business is gone, or they had to close shop. But there are so many opportunities that they could do online and reach even more people. And just get a mentor who will really help you along, because mentors, they collapse time and they keep us from making mistakes that, they help us to avoid mistakes that they made. And so their expertise can really accelerate us. And, as we get older, obviously we don't have as much time left, but that's okay. And we still have a lot we can accomplish.
So if I asked you, if I was struggling with something, just in terms of being discouraged or just not sure about what I wanted to do, what steps would you give me to identify, what my dream is or what my values are or what it is that I need to find out about me to move towards living my dream life?
Yeah, the thought just occurred to me. It's like, and I do have several exercises in the book. Like every other chapter is dream strategies to help you think about your dreams. So it's kind of two books in one. One chapter is a book about my life in a country where I served. Another chapter is dream strategies to help you fulfill your dreams, because you're going to say, well, that's great for you, Connie. What about me, right?
Right.
So I have, ideas. I have worksheets and different things as well in there. But I think you need to sit down and have a meeting with yourself and have a meeting with the Lord and just say, what am I here for? What is it that you put so many desires in mind? Start writing your desires. Like if you had all the time and money in the world, if you had no obstacles, no barriers, if you had no restrictions, what would you want to do? Let's say I gave you $6 million and you have all the time in the world, you have all the resources at your disposal. What would you want to do? That's a good question to ask yourself. And would my heart be in it? I think too often we're in our head and not in our heart. I have the same thing. I'm an intellectual person. Too often I'm in my head and not in my heart, maybe. And it's kind of your heart that the issues of life come out of, right? And it's like it's so important to be in touch with that. And too often we let other things crowd in. And it's a natural thing, especially when let's say you're a father and a husband, and you got all these responsibilities. Maybe you got an elder parent or whatever that needs taken care of. Whatever, people are busy, and I think even with COVID, it's like the whole world took a deep breath. It's like, what am I doing? You know, people have been on treadmills for this whole work and commute and, you know, all this stuff. And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying ignore your responsibilities, but I am saying get your life engaged with something that is meaningful to you. And I think also as an older person, when our dreams start to die, we start to die because we have to have something to live for. We have to have something to get up for in the morning, right? And yeah, I think that's again a value who you are and what you and the gifts within you. And maybe there's a gift that's been dormant for a while and say, okay, I would really, really, really like to do that still yet. And you're not dead yet. The alarm clock of your life hasn't gone off yet, right?
Yes.
Get moving. And what for older people too is you got to keep moving, man. You just got to keep moving, you know.
And I love that because life goes by really fast. I feel like every year it just goes faster and faster.
Yeah.
But I also feel like life has become richer and richer as time has passed because of the lessons that I've learned and embracing things about myself that maybe I didn't care about in the past. I didn't think I liked that about myself, but actually realizing that it's really part of who I am and that I don't have to put judgments on everything about me. I can actually just live and be me.
Yes. Yeah,
so, okay. So, Connie, you know, my question, well, first I want to do one thing. First, I would like you to tell us the name of all 3 of your books.
Okay.
They are on Amazon. I know they are bestsellers, but tell us the name of those books and we will make sure that is in the descriptions. Okay, so Dream On.
Dream On, and then the second book is Wounded No More. It's hard to see. Okay, Wounded No More is tell people that have been hurt in the church. Too many people have left church, left their faith, went through really traumatic things in churches, and nobody wants to talk about it. So I get real honest about things in there. And then the third book is Memoirs Matter. Learn how to write yours. So that's basically a guide on how to go about writing a memoir. And it's based on the model that I came up with for my book, because even the publisher said, this is a different kind of a model. And, people would say, people think you need to be rich and famous to write a memoir. And I said, no. But at the same time, who's Connie Czepiel? Nobody's going to run down to Walmart and pick up the memoir of Connie Czepiel. Nobody knows me, And so I thought, how can I make this more appealing? And I decided to come up with a theme for the book and to not just talk about myself, but to help other people fulfill their dreams. And so I think that's very helpful. And older people often want to, leave lessons in life they've learned. A lot of people don't talk about the past. You got a lot of veterans that their family never even knew what they went through and so forth. I'm a veteran myself. And so there are stories, there are lessons, there are all kinds of things that people would like to share, and they don't have to be rich and famous to do it. They just have to come up with a theme for their book.
I love that. So, Connie, tell us, because you really, you kind of alluded, I think, to this a little bit, but I think you have had a completely fascinating life, and you have made choices for it to be that way. So yes. What did you do to step into this amazing life that you created?
I think I was willing to take risks and to not be like everybody else, and also to value who I am. We've talked about that. It's like, don't be an imitation of somebody else, a second-rate imitation of somebody else. Be yourself.
I love that. So everyone, thank you for joining me today on Step Into Your Life. I know that I walked away with a couple of really inspiring thoughts that I can take back with me, and I hope that our viewers do as well. But I want to be like you. I love all of those experiences and adventures. I just think that you have made the most of your time so far. And the alarm clock is still set, so you got a lot to go. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing it with us. So thank you again for joining us. And I ask you to please come with me so we can journey together.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.